This is what happened when I started using D5 Render. These were the results that I created. And because D5 Render's all-in-one workflow has allowed me to work efficiently, I no longer have to jump between tools. So let me show you how. Using this SketchUp model, I'm gonna walk you through the steps of how I create renderings using D5's all-in-one workflow. First off, I'm gonna use the D5 plugin that I've downloaded that includes the D5 Livesync and the D5 Lite feature. D5 Lite, introduced in D5 Render 3.0, is an AI-powered real-time rendering plugin for SketchUp. Built on the proprietary D5 engine, it delivers excellent results, real-time performance, with powerful AI features. Within the D5 Render SketchUp plugin, you can also have access to D5's asset library. So right now, I'm gonna go ahead and start placing and populating some vegetation within this landscape of the house. So I'm gonna add some bushes and some trees to the space to fill it in a little bit more. We've already used the D5 plugin to populate the scene. Another way that you can start to add assets to the project is using D5 Works, which is new to D5 Render. Use the web version like I'm showing here, or within the D5 launcher, which I will reveal later on in the video. D5 Works has all the materials and all the 3D models within D5 Render, in addition to a bunch of assets created by the community. And those community specific assets gives D5 Works a much more extensive library, well beyond what D5 Render has to offer. And these community assets that are uploaded, those creators get 100% of the commissions. So let's say you wanted to upload one of these assets to your project. So the community assets you just have to download and then bring into the project. But you can also do it by opening up the D5 launcher, clicking online, and then going to 3D models and searching what you want. So when you find the asset that you want to bring in, all you have to do is click on it, let it download real quick. And then once it's selected, you just hover over the SketchUp model and a thumbnail will appear, and then it'll load within a couple seconds. So there we go, we have this asset loaded. Now you can manipulate it and place it wherever you want. Next up, we're gonna actually create renderings within SketchUp using D5 Render with the D5 Lite tool, which allows you to create AI renderings given a style as well as a text prompt or reference image. First off, we're gonna choose a style for this project. Do something similar to a villa, and then you can adjust the slider for a more accurate style or a more creative style to what the model is showing. And then in addition, I'm just gonna add a quick text prompt describing the image that I have and also the scene that I want to create. So I want something more in the evening to night. So hopefully the rendering will show better lighting and realistic materials given that descriptive scene. So I'll hit enter, confirm that prompt, and then AI is gonna generate 4 options for renderings. So there we go, the renderings have generated. All 4 scenes are at night, and you can start to see the lighting within the house, as well as the materials are fairly accurate to what we have modeled within SketchUp. Within D5 Lite, you can also toggle on real-time rendering as you see here. For this specific scene, I'm definitely gonna turn down the exposure because it's way too bright. But you can adjust things like the sky, materials, add in assets, and adjust different effects. And what's nice about having real-time rendering with D5 Lite within SketchUp is you don't have to open up the D5 rendering app whatsoever, which makes D5 Lite great for quick and easy rendering. But we're gonna take it a step further because this rendering will not compare to the final result that we're gonna get with D5 Render. So what I'm gonna do is bring this 3D model from SketchUp into D5 Render using the D5 Livesync feature. D5 Render will open up with the Livesync and we'll start a new project. And by bringing it in from SketchUp to D5 Render in Livesync, it allows any changes we make in SketchUp to be adjusted and reflected in D5 Render. And D5 Render is just an enhanced version of D5 Lite with even more customization and flexibility with the assets and the materials that you can use and the settings that you can adjust within the program. So the first thing I want to adjust is the lighting, because as we saw before, the scene is somewhat overexposed. So I'm going to go ahead and change the sky. First of all, we want this to be a little bit more of an evening scene. So I'm going to select one of the sunset HDRIs, and then I'm going to turn off the exposure because that definitely had a significant impact on how vibrant the scene was. But there's still a high intensity in the lighting, so I'm going to select all the lights in the project and turn down the intensity. In the background, there's a lot of empty space. So I'm going to bring in one of the background planes into the D5 model to kind of give it some background context without having to model a ton of trees or placing any context. So I'm going to start by placing this larger background scene, and then I'm going to place this row of trees as a secondary visual buffer in the rendering. And to top it all off, I'm going to add a path of additional trees into the space. Using the path tool, I can then select the specific tree or nature assets that I want included along the path. And then from there, I'm able to adjust the density and then how far off the offset of those assets are from the path itself. So it gives a lot more natural and randomized experience rather than just a straight row of trees that look super fake. Next up, I really want to upgrade the materials within this scene. So first of all, I'm going to work on this paving where the garage and the entry sidewalk is into the house. I'm going to choose this exterior paving to place in that area. And that just shows how much a material can elevate the overall scene in a rendering. I noticed this existing gravel texture and I wanted to upgrade it using a D5 gravel material. And so already you can see the quality is a lot better. But a new feature within D5 3.0 is the height map and the true displacement. So as you can see, as I'm adjusting these settings, the height and the depth and the shadow of the material really pop, especially for this gravel where there's a lot of variance. This next feature is absolutely insane, and that is the ocean feature, which you can select from the terrain drop down as you see here. We can also adjust the height of the ocean. So if we want it really high, it'll flood everything, but if we bring it down, you can see how it interacts with the terrain. Now you can adjust the wavelength, the wave height, and the speed, as well as we can start to mess with the foam intensity as it approaches the coastline and the shore. But let's try out if we start to edit the terrain. So I'm going to remove this area of the terrain, and as you see, there's a massive hole that gets filled with the ocean. So it's very adaptable to what you are messing around with in the D5 model. But you can also work around other objects within the scene using the coastline anchor tool. And so we have this with that white object, and now you've noticed once we've anchored it, the ocean waves are now colliding with that anchor point. You can now create 3D models from an image using AI in D5 Render. So all you have to do is upload an image. So I'm going to take an image of this sculpture, and then once it's uploaded, you can give it a model name and then click generate, and the rest will be taken care of with AI. Now that our 3D model is generated, I'm going to select it and bring it over into our rendering scene. But here's the thing, did our 2D image that we inputted actually get accurately portrayed by the 3D model created in D5 Render? So let's give it a 360 view. I say the front is pretty accurate, but the sides aren't too bad themselves. Now let's take a peek and look up a little bit at the sky. A new feature is the volumetric clouds within D5 Render, which allow you to change to various types of clouds and then adjust even more advanced settings from there. So there are a certain amount of presets, and then you can customize it even further. And then if you're doing a video scene, you're able to adjust the clouds, the direction they go, the speed at which they are coming, as well as how high they are off the ground. When I zoomed in pretty close to the building, I realized that the interior lighting probably wasn't sufficient for the night rendering we were going for. So I went back into SketchUp, and because you can add lights within SketchUp, I wanted to try that out using the D5 light feature. So I added a few lights to the interior spaces on the lower level. All you have to do is click on the type of light you want and then identify and place that within the SketchUp scene. So it's super easy, and then you can adjust the intensity as well as the temperature or color of the light. Now we're finally at the final stages where we can start to curate the style of the rendering. So using the AI scene match within the AI agent, I brought in a reference photo, and it'll take that reference photo and bring in all the characteristics and the lighting that are used and apply it to the scene. As you see, it just instantly updated and changed all the lighting and the settings. But you can also use the AI asset recommendation tool. So using the same image, I brought it into the AI agent, and it'll think and load for a couple seconds, and then it'll create a whole list of different assets within D5 Render that are targeted from that image. It'll show you the location that it's coming from, and then 3 options that you can use or select to give a similar effect. So these 2 tools are great additions to D5 in 3.0, and then it also links you to the D5 Works tab if you want to get additional asset. Now let's get started by setting up our rendering. So I'm going to click into the scene that I want, and I'm going to open up the D5 Studio and click on the D5 Curate tab, which has a wide selection of presets that I can use for the lighting in my scene. So this one's a little bit too saturated and vibrant, but I'm going to adjust the exposure and bring it down a little bit. And then I also have another option, which I think I like a little bit better, also from the D5 Studio library. So I'm going to set up the aspect ratio and make sure I have the AI post-production on, and then I'm going to render the image. The rendering is complete, but we're going to do a little bit of post-production, and all that can still be done within D5 using the AI post-production tab. I'll double click into the image that I want to use. The first AI post-production method is using the AI enhancement tool, which has an enhancement weight and then also a texture weight. You can also use AI style transfer to use any of the selected styles or bring in your own reference image and test that out. But I feel like the image that I created doesn't really need too much post-production, so we're going to be using the InPaint tool because I think the vegetation is the only area that needs some improvement. But thankfully, we can select specific areas within the rendering that we want without changing the overall composition. So as you see here, I'm selecting only the vegetation that I want to be InPainted. And once I have that selected, I'll generate the image. And so this is the result. Let's zoom in a little bit. You can see that this is the original image. And when I move the slider over, none of the building or none of the context that I didn't select was adjusted. But the vegetation definitely improved. Let's check out some of the other results that I created in D5 with this scene. But let me know what you think and if D5's all-in-one workflow is something that you want to try out, because it certainly has helped me speed up my workflow, but also create better results. Because as we see, I started with the SketchUp model and did all of the rest within D5 Render. I didn't have to go to Photoshop for post-processing or download any assets from third-party asset libraries, because all of it was included within D5 Render, and it created a seamless and effortless workflow. And if you want to try out D5 Render today for free, click on the link in the description below. D5 Render is currently running a D5 3.0 challenge that encourages users to share their workflow videos just like I'm doing right here. So if you want to check out the challenge, share your workflow for a 5-day pro trial, and even get a chance to win a 3-month D5 Pro license with extra rewards. There'll be more details in the description below. Thank you guys for watching, and welcome to the grind.